Hi YouTube. I'll try to keep this very short, very brief, try not to ramble on too much, as I've already been mulling over this for a long time, so I just want to kind of respond very quickly and not prolong my response. I got an email a few days ago from my stepmother. I responded to that email and she emailed me back, and this video is an indirect response to that email. I've thought about responding directly to her, but I realized that that would be completely useless. When you talk to somebody who is 100% absolutely convinced that they know the right way that you should be living your life, then no matter what you say to them, if it's not what they think is correct, then you're just going to be beating your head up against the wall, and I don't want to do that. Nonetheless, I do want to respond to that email, and I want to share it with friends and family, I think it's just mostly for therapy for me. There's a lot of construction going on outside of the building here, and there's also a lot of general noise on the street below, so I hope the noise doesn't interrupt, but if it does, please excuse that. So I'm looking over the email now, and the response is not surprising. I realize that when people are controlled, when their speech is controlled, when their thoughts are controlled, when the information that they take in is controlled, and only uniformity in thought is acceptable within an organization, then I realize that the range of responses from a person like my stepmother is going to be really limited. And so I am not really surprised at the response, but it's still really disappointing because these are my parents, and I think I recognized even before I left that I lost my parents, and this email just really brings that to the forefront of my mind. Right off of the bat, she says that she got permission to write to me, and that by her getting this permission from I have no clue who, that's a sign that Jehovah loves me. That's stupid. You shouldn't have to ask for permission to write to your own daughter. And what you see as a sign of love, I see as a sign of control and stupidity. No one should have to ask for permission to talk to their own children. Also, in this letter, realizing that I lost my parents, in my response, I told her about how I felt and about my experience as a Jehovah's Witness. And instead of putting herself in my shoes and understanding how someone would feel when they are told that they better love a God and they just don't, instead of putting herself in that situation, she went to the Bible, pulled out a Bible character named Hagar, and just tried to squish my situation, what I went through, and turn it into a Hagar problem. And the fact that you can't talk directly to your parents, and that they can't talk directly to you, they have to go through this wall. They have to filter everything that you say through the Bible, and then when they talk back to you, they have to talk through the Bible and through Bible characters. It really takes away from the closeness that should exist between parents and children, that they can't talk directly to each other, that it has to go through the filter of the Bible first. It's very distancing. There's a lot of hypocrisy in this email. One of them, she says, "You are not most people. You belong to Jehovah. Isaiah says that you are my people whom I have chosen." And then later on in the same email, she says, "Let it be announced that you are no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses." So that's two completely different thoughts, saying that I belong to Jehovah, but later on announcing that I'm no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. She also says, "You are certainly not going to meetings, so you are not hearing Jehovah express his love for you," which is a completely different idea. Later she says that I'm loved, even though I can't see it, that they're shunning me is an expression of love for me. So first she says that I have to be in Jehovah's presence, that I have to be in front of him in order to sense that love. Yet my family, they can shove me out of their presence, and I should still see that as a sign of love. Two very completely different ideas. I think it's also extremely hypocritical that they condemn the world. They talk about how terrible the world is, that it has no natural affection. Yeah, I think the affection that should exist between a parent and children, the Watchtower and Jehovah's Witnesses completely disrupt. And the fact that parents can completely cut off their children, shove them out of the family, is beyond lacking natural affection. It's cruel, and it's hateful. And I think it's very hypocritical that they condemn the world for not having natural affection when they themselves lack the most basic, fundamental form of affection. She also says, "You have judged us harshly. Let's hope that you are never judged in this same way." Throughout this letter, she tells me that I'm continuing in badness, that I'm walking disorderly, that I'm not being humble like Hagar. And because of these things, that I have been judged unworthy of communication with my family, and that I am not acceptable to have association with my family. And so when she says, I better hope that I'm not judged harshly, I feel like I've received the most harshest judgment that a person can have, to have their whole family just walled off from you, and they just shove you out. Like, I don't know what's harsher than that. She also says that there are many things that I was taught not to do as a result of being taught by Jehovah, and that I should be grateful for these things. That I have respect for my body, and that because I've learned to be a good person, that I should be thankful to Jehovah. And I have a response for that, is that I feel like who I am today and the life that I have to my parents, and to having thinking abilities. I feel very sorry for my parents, that they need someone to tell them, that they ought not do drugs, that they ought not beat their wife, that they ought not neglect their children, that they ought not be alcoholics. But I have a thinking brain, and I recognize that the decisions that I make have consequences. And so I try to make decisions now that are going to lead to me having a happy life in the future. So it just I don't feel like it takes Jehovah to make those decisions. It's pretty common, basic 101 understanding of life, that what you do has consequences. Yeah, I'm not stupid. she also says that she also says, I have found no lies here among Jehovah's Witnesses. And my simple response to that is because you haven't looked. Jehovah's Witnesses are liars. They're scandalous and they're hypocrites. So if you haven't found any lies, it's because you haven't looked. There's the UN thing, which everybody who even tries to look can find so much information on. They were part of the UN for 10 years, while at the same time calling this organization the wild beast, and part of Satan's world. There's also the child molestation cases that millions of that donated money is going towards, paying to keep people quiet, paying to keep that stuff under wraps. But the information is out there. And then the recent thing, while Jehovah's Witnesses are condemning the world for ruining the earth, they're dumping chemicals into the earth from their printing presses. So there's just so much information, more than what I've even mentioned. So if you haven't found any lies, it's because you haven't looked. That's that. And I think I feel very frustrated that something that's very important to me, my family recognizing that I walked away from that organization, but that I still love my family and I still want to be a part of them. She mocked me. She just said that idea is hilarious. And I can see clearly why Jehovah's Witnesses are viewed as arrogant. Because to be so absolutely certain that you're right and to mock other people for views that they hold dear is nothing short of arrogant and heartless. Because that means a lot to me that you understand that. But they're not going to understand. And I think last, I just feel like my stepmother doesn't understand what she's asking of me. She's asking me to give myself completely up, to give up my life, to give up my identity to this organization that I not only don't believe in, but that I understand is completely scandalous. They're liars, and they completely rupture families. They destroy a person's identity. They take away your sense of self-worth by saying that you're a sinner and you don't deserve life, but Jehovah's going to give it to you anyways because he's just so patronizing. I can't support that organization. And I will never support that organization ever again. And to call me selfish for that, I just hate that word so much, because I think that it's so vague and silly, because a lot of almost everything that a person does can be considered selfish. But if we want to think about that, about selfishness, and I really think that a person living for themselves is not even close to the selfishness that of a person who emotionally blackmails another person, holding their family hostage, trying to force that other person to live the way that they want them to live. So, you can call me selfish for just wanting to be myself and live my own life, but I think it's even more selfish on, the part of Jehovah's Witnesses to, emotionally try to blackmail and ruin people, trying to force them to live their way. And they may feel like they're right because that's what Jehovah says, but I think Jehovah is a selfish asshole, that he would put those kinds of rules in place, trying to force people to live the way that He wants them to live. And not only would I not serve and support this God, I would spit in His face if He were real. And that's the way I feel. I have no respect for that God and for any of His doctrines. And I'm not going back to that ever. And I still love my family, and I still want to be a part of their lives, but I can't support that organization. And I don't think I'm a terrible person that deserves to die, because I won't respect an organization that ruins identities and splits parents and children up. And yeah, that's my response. Some of it, I don't know what else to say. And other parts of this, I think, are just completely hypocritical and just shows that I don't have my parents, that I lost them a long time ago. I guess that's it.